Hi, this is Karen Donaldson, and welcome to the first in the series of I know what I'm supposed to do to lose weight, so why can't I do it? In this video, I'm going to talk about carbohydrates and sugars and the way they affect our bodies and also our brains and our willpower and our ability to lose weight and to keep it off. There's a lot of confusion out there about the different types of carbs, so we'll discuss that for sure, but I also want to talk about the effect that these carbs have on our blood sugar levels and on our insulin levels and how they can so easily get stored as fat. But I also want to talk about the way they make you feel. There is a very real reason why foods like bread, cereal, pasta, chocolate, and ice cream are called comfort foods. And if you have ever self-medicated with carbs, like I have, to make yourself feel better or to calm down, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So let me introduce you to your body. I love to use this board to teach people about what's really going on with their bodies and their minds in a way that is easy to understand. So this is your body in like living magnetic color. Okay, so the white behind here is representing your blood. You have blood flowing through your entire body, of course carrying oxygen and nutrients to all the different cells of your body. This right here represents your pancreas. And the pancreas plays a really important role when it comes to digestion, but also when it comes to storing body fat. And the way that the pancreas plays a role is by making these little green keys, which are also insulin. These are insulin keys, okay? This right here, this represents a muscle cell in your body. So if you take one muscle cell and you put a whole bunch of them together, then you have a muscle tissue. And this is just one of those muscle cells. And you might not know it, but inside of your muscle cells are chemicals dressed up as these little guys. These are glucose or sugar receivers. And it's actually their job to pull sugars in from the blood into those muscle cells to give you energy. This right here, this blob right here, this is belly fat or abdominal obesity. This is the thing that we're trying to avoid. And these right here, think of these as little sugar molecules, little glucose or sugar molecules. And what happens is every single time we eat or drink something with carbohydrates in it. So bread, cereal, rice, pasta, cookies, crackers, chips, bagels, tortillas, waffles, pancakes, french fries, soda, sports drinks, Gatorade, Powerade, pizza, ice cream, the list goes on and on. Every time we have anything with some carbohydrates in it, what happens is that those get digested, they go to your digestive system, and they're chopped up, chop, 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 and then they are released out into your blood, and they are now called blood sugar or blood glucose, okay? And that's perfectly normal. Very shortly after you have a meal or a beverage with carbohydrates in it, if you poked your finger, you would notice that the level of your blood sugar has increased. And again, that's what's supposed to happen, but in moderation, okay? So what happens next is that your pancreas looks around and says, oh, I see all this blood sugar. I better take care of it. I better get it into the muscle cells where it belongs. So your pancreas gets busy and starts making those insulin keys. Those insulin keys travel through the blood, making their way to the muscle cells. And when they get to the muscle cells, they knock on the door. You have to use your imagination, okay? The little guys are supposed to then answer the knock at the door, help to unlock it, and let those sugars get inside of the muscle cells to give them energy. And that's really good. Your muscle cells are happy. They're like, yay, I got some energy. I feel better. I can live now. And your blood's happy because it got rid of some of the blood sugar and it's more in balance, and all is well with the world. And that's how it's supposed to work. But it doesn't always work that way. What happens to so many people is that they end up with an abundance of extra sugars in their blood. So that may come from just eating too many carbohydrates, or maybe it was a binge, or just a bad day and you're having a lot of comfort foods. For whatever reason, the blood sugar levels then are high. That also sends a signal to the pancreas to start making some insulin, and the pancreas is like, okay, I can start making insulin. And again, it makes those insulin keys, but this time when it comes knocking, there's no answer. The insulin keys are knocking and knocking, but the little receiver guys inside of the cells are not hearing the knock. And what's happening here is that the cells are actually becoming resistant to insulin. And that's actually where we get the word from, insulin resistance. The cells are becoming resistant to the action of those insulin keys knocking on the door, and these guys don't even hear the knock. So they can't answer the door. Meanwhile, the pancreas is freaking out a little bit. It's like, oh my gosh, I've got to do something to get those sugars into those muscle cells. And so it decides to go into overtime. So it starts cranking out a whole bunch of extra insulin keys, trying to hopefully help out the situation. So pretty soon you have like a zillion of these guys beating on the door. Let me in, let me in. And somewhat grudgingly, these little receiver guys are like, whatever, we're coming, I guess we'll answer the door, but it takes a while and it takes quite a bit of insulin as well. But eventually they do unlock the door and they let some of those sugars get into the muscle cells. And that part's kind of okay, but what really happens now is that we've opened the door to a whole cascade of other events happening inside the body. The next thing that happens is that these insulin keys, they see that there still is a lot of sugar hanging out in the blood, and they want to do something with it. And so actually one of the things that they do is they take those extra sugars to the liver and they store them in the liver. And we're supposed to have some sugars in the liver, but not like too many sugars. And once inside the liver, those sugars, 3 of those sugars can combine with 3 fats. And now you just made a triglyceride, which is one of those bad types of cholesterol that increases your risk for heart disease and a bunch of other things. So important to keep that in mind, because a lot of people might think that it's meat and butter and eggs and so forth that are raising your triglyceride levels, when really the amount of refined carbohydrates that we're consuming play a huge role in this. So the insulin is putting some of the sugars into the muscle cells, but they can only store so much. Some of the sugars get stored in the liver and can actually raise your cholesterol levels, not in a good way. But then you still have a whole bunch of these sugars hanging around, and they have to go somewhere. And so, you got it, guess where they go? They end up getting stored as fat right in the belly. Which of course is not very desirable. That's not what we're looking for, but that is actually where they end up going. Again, they have to go somewhere. So this process right here is called insulin resistance or pre-diabetes. It's actually a pre-diabetic condition, because what happens next is if this continues, you decide, well, it's not really that bad, or I'm not worried about it, or I don't care, or whatever. Or you really have a hard time, you know what you're supposed to do, but you can't stop doing it. Then what happens over time is your pancreas starts to get tired. So right now, your pancreas is able to overproduce and make a whole bunch of extra insulin, but it can't keep on doing that for years. So down the road, what happens is when your insulin keys come knocking and there's no answer, your pancreas is like, ugh, I'm tired. I can't keep doing that. I can give you like a little bit of extra insulin, if that, but not very much. Just can't do it anymore. And when that happens, then the blood sugars start to rise and they stay high, and now it's type 2 diabetes. So this is the progression that happens. We start with some regular metabolism, some normal metabolism, getting those sugars into the muscle cells. If we have some insulin resistance going on, we're having to make extra insulin, which is creating problems for our triglycerides and for our belly fat, and then it can progress to type 2 diabetes. And again, it sounds so simple. If I ask someone, well, what is the answer to this question? How can I make this stop? Most people will say, well, simple. We're not supposed to be eating so many carbohydrates. But again, that is sometimes so much easier said than done. So I want you to take a moment right now and think about how this story applies to you. Have you ever eaten those processed and refined carbs even when you weren't hungry, even though logically you knew better? I'm sure you'll agree with me that most of the time, physical hunger, it has nothing to do with this. In fact, if I'm honest, I can recall several times throughout my life where I was eating when I absolutely was not hungry. There's no way I needed a big bowl of buttered popcorn an hour after dinner or a half a bag of chips after breakfast, and I certainly didn't need to stand at the kitchen counter and mindlessly inhale handfuls of cold cereal. And I knew better. I had the knowledge. I teach this stuff. But I was just like you. I couldn't stop. And it didn't matter how much I knew. It didn't help. And as a dietitian and a personal trainer and the owner of a weight loss clinic, I should have been able to lose weight, but I couldn't. And it was starting to affect my life and my business, but more importantly, it was really frustrating. Like, how could I help people if I couldn't help myself? And it was really heartbreaking too. I would hear stories of my clients and feel their pain, and then I would teach them everything I knew about diet and exercise, but the end result was always the same. They might lose some weight, or they might gain it back, or the weight loss would stop. And certainly nothing dramatic or impressive, but like I wasn't getting results either. And the truth is, I was using food in the same way that my clients were, and I didn't know how to stop. It was frustrating and embarrassing, and it was making me angry. It was really ridiculous. I would keep a journal, I would record all my food, I would set a goal weight, and I would be so excited and so focused. And then some days or some weeks later, I would still be overweight, or maybe I would have gained weight, and I could never figure out why all the energy and all the focus that I put into other areas of my life didn't work when it came to food. And it wasn't until I really started to study and understand the very powerful connection between food and our emotions and our brain chemistry that it started to make sense. So it really wasn't about willpower at all. There was so much more to the story. And it's no wonder that my clients and I were failing. We did not understand the effect that the sugar and the carbs and the comfort foods were having on our minds, on our brain chemistry. So I spent the next several years researching this and studying this, and there was so much to learn. It was so fascinating. It turns out there is a lot of psychology and emotion surrounding our eating issues, and it's absolutely vital that we understand this and that we learn how to work with this so that it doesn't work against us. So I started to practice what I was learning on myself, and it worked. At age 49, right when it seems like it's impossible for women to lose weight because of all the hormonal changes and so on, I lost over 25 pounds. And I'm so happy to share that I've actually kept that weight off for about 6 or 7 years now. It's not even coming back. I don't even worry about it. And I knew then that I needed to share this with as many people as possible. And that honestly, without sounding corny, at the very level of my soul, that sharing this is one of the reasons why I'm on this planet. And so I'm here sharing this with you now. Of course, I want to share this information to help people release the physical weight, but I also want to help people heal from all of the pain that comes with not being able to lose the weight and keep it off, and the shame and the guilt and the frustrations, the feelings of being a failure, or not feeling like you're good enough, or hating your body, or not liking yourself or loving yourself. And I also want to help people learn how to live their lives, to like really show up in their bodies and not put off living, to participate and like be happy and joyful and connected, and to have a peaceful relationship with food and with themselves. So I really can't tell you how blessed I am to understand this complex relationship that we have with our bodies and our minds and food, and how honored I am to be sharing that with you. I do have a master's degree in microbiology and biochemistry, and it's that science background that really gave me the ability to understand how all of this works. But even more important, understanding how powerful our emotions and cravings are when it comes to weight really gives me the background to be able to convey this information to you in a way that I hope is really easy to understand, so you can apply it to yourself and start your own weight loss transformation and healing journey. So if you're ready to learn more about how this can work for you, I invite you to schedule a complimentary phone or Skype session with me. Just email me at excelweightloss@gmail.com and I will send you a link to my calendar. There's no charge for this visit and we can talk about whatever you would like to. I just really want people to know that there is a reason why you can't do what you know you're supposed to do, but there is also hope. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to connect with you soon.